Okay, so in the last video I showed you how to solder up the circuit, and in this video, in preparation for installing it, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be removing my light and I'm going to be taking it apart and showing you the prototype. I've also got another light behind me, another model, and we'll take a look at that because it's slightly different, and just to sort of give you an insight of what they look like on the insides before you install it yourself. So one thing to note is the light looks from the outside completely standard. The original wire goes in, the original power brick is being used, and the only telltale sign that you can see is there are two screws missing. One's here and the other one's just there, and that's because the board actually sits in that little area there and the screws are not available to use. And looking in the side here, we can just sort of see the board, but it is well tucked in there and all well hidden. Okay, so after removing all them screws, you can remove this top plate here. Another thing to note as well, there's a little warranty sticker on this corner here. It goes without saying that this is definitely going to void your warranty, but if you're watching this video you probably don't worry about that anyway. So you can now open it up, and the first thing I want to tell you is you have to be really careful, because these things here, I actually secured mine with hot glue, but the lenses are actually loose. There's one that's loose there, look. It's got hot glue on it, but it's loose. So if you was to move this, they could all fall out. So what we've got in here is we've got two fans, which are in my case quite dirty. We've got all the lenses, and below the lenses are the LEDs. If I take that one off, you can see the LED. It's relatively small. And in the middle here, we've got this board here. Now this board here has the power management for each of the individual LED channels. And there are 6 channels, so you have 6 different LED power circuits, and they go to the LED panels themselves through these connectors here. They have a plug which connects down here, which goes to the board, which I will show you in a minute, which is what the board that we're going to replace in. I've actually got the original board, which is just here, and that sat in there like that. I've removed the plugs here, for obviously to use them in this project, but that is the board that went in that slot before. As you can see, that has holes here for the screws, which would have been here, but obviously we can't use them because the board doesn't allow for them standoffs to sit there. So here we've got the temperature sensor, which goes into the prototype board, and we've also got the wire which runs down here, which also goes into the prototype board down here. The fans actually connect to the power board in the middle and have no direct connection other than via this wire, this ribbon cable here on the bottom, to the new board. So if I remove this little bit of shielding, which is an original piece which I just put back in, I'll just put that to one side. So as you can see, this is the board, the original board, and it has the same components. So you can see in there we've got the PWM module. Down there we've got the Raspberry Pi on the underside. We've got the 5-volt regulator. We've got the little plug socket here, and the PCB, which I've now designed, is here done manually with wires. So even though this is a DIY solution, it has been running for a very long time now, a couple of months. And it hasn't had any trouble at all. Even if the power is taken off because I've removed the power brick from the wall or something, it powers straight back up and it remembers its settings and everything. That's all working fine. I've never had trouble with it connecting to it on the computer. It's all worked flawlessly. So you don't need to use the PCB that I've designed. You can pretty much solder it as I've done here. It is, like I say, it is very time consuming, but you can do it. So if I bring in the new board and just place it next to each other, you can now see how much we've sort of cleaned up and made it looking much more of a professional sort of install. There are some slight modifications, like the Raspberry Pi sits in the opposite direction on this board, and that is because I wanted to have the USB ports face outside, just in case we ever decide to use them for something. You can connect them up. You could theoretically put a hole in the side here and connect them up. And if I bring in the original and put that next to it, you can see that they're very similar in size. And as you can see, they're all this is sort of a combination of both of these, because the prototype only has one connector and the PCB has room for 2, just like the original did. This has the temperature sensor wired into it as well, just like the prototype does over here. The original temperature sensor for the original board connected to this plug here and was on a little screw in sort of grommet here. I just removed all that because it's no longer needed. Okay, so here's the second light that I've got, and as you can see I've already removed the lid to save a bit of time, but you can see that these sort of clusters here are the same on both the lights. So that is the same as the one that I just showed you, and that is the same as the one I just showed you. And they are linked via the power cables at the bottom here. So the power comes in, it goes into that module, and it comes across, and it goes into this module here. At the top here you have the input, which goes to the little computer board, and that comes across and goes into one of them plugs there, and that one there goes into this plug here. The fans, as you can see, they can connect into these two ports here, so they are the same. They don't have any direct connection to the new board. And the temperature sensor is this one here. That's still the original one, which we will be replacing. And here we can see the original board that comes with the light itself, and that works with this remote here, which I find to be a bit tricky to program and not very user friendly. So that was one of the reasons for doing this project. This is the original board that came out of the other light, which I just showed you, and you can see here that they are slightly different. They have done their own upgrades and whatnot. Like here, for example, there's a port on it which is for something, I'm not sure. This one has a USB on it here, and that would have been for charging the remote. The new one doesn't have it. You can see the Bluetooth modules or the Wi-Fi modules are the same, and the placement of the plugs are the same as well, and they're the same plug. And in speaking of looking at these boards here, you can see if we take a close look here, and I sort of move these wires back here, you can see their label, which is really good. They label every single pin on the board. You can see there is a ground pin, there are 6 PWM, there's 12 volt plus, there's a fan on, and there's a fan PWM, and that basically has enabled me to do the same pin out over here on this board, and all we have to do is take that plug it on there, and it all works just as it should. As you can see here, these are not glued in yet, and they're all loose. They are all exactly the same, so you could, if you wanted to, you could take them all out and put them in a bag, or just keep them separate and secure so that they don't fall out, because if you was to knock this or move it, then they will all just come flying out. Okay, so that's it for this video. I wanted to just give you a quick rundown and quick show you of what they look like on the insides before we actually go into it and start changing out parts and whatnot. In the next video, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be putting the plugs on this and powering it up for the first time on taking out the prototype board in the other light, and using that light to make the first power up, test the voltage on here, make sure it's all working right, and sort of do the final sort of clean install. Following on from that, we will be I'll show you how to create the SD card, the file, and then how to program it. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.